What if I told you there's something you could do every single morning that takes less time than checking your phone, costs absolutely nothing, and has the potential to completely change how your life feels? Not in theory, not someday, but within a week. And what if I told you that when one of the most influential teachers of our time, a woman whose work has touched millions of people around the world, was given a seat on the Oprah Winfrey Show and asked what single message she most wanted people to hear? This was it? You might think, there's no way it's that simple. That's exactly what I thought too. And I was wrong. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people spend their whole lives missing. Let's start with something real. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to put one hand on your stomach and the other hand on your heart. Just feel the warmth of your own fingers there. Feel that. That's your body. That's you, taking care of you. And here's the thing almost nobody ever does. Just say to yourself quietly, I love you, you're safe, and I am here. That's it. It sounds almost too small to matter, right? But that's the whole point. The most powerful things often do. About 25 years ago, a woman named Cheryl was sitting in the back of a crowded auditorium in Boston, way up in the balcony, listening to a teacher named Louise Hay talk about her book, You Can Heal Your Life. Cheryl was just a regular person at the time. She was on her own journey, figuring herself out, and something about Louise's work cracked something open in her. Not dramatically, just a quiet shift. She loved two things about Louise specifically. First, that Louise told her own story. She didn't pretend to have been born wise. She'd lived through genuinely hard things and found her way through them. And second, that what Louise taught was practical. Cheryl had been to lectures before where people would stand at the front of the room and say, "You just need to love yourself." And she'd sit there thinking, okay, but how? Like specifically, what do I actually do? Louise gave you the how. That mattered. So there was Cheryl, sitting up in the balcony, genuinely moved by the experience, and somewhere in the back of her mind, like a whisper that passed almost before she caught it, a small thought. I would love to do that someday. She let it go. She didn't chase it. She didn't make a plan. Life just kept moving. 25 years later, she was on stage with Louise, having co-written a book with her. That's not a coincidence story. That's a demonstration of something we're going to talk about today. What happens when you plant seeds in your own mind, even quietly, even without forcing them? Here's where it gets interesting. Louise, at 85 years old, was still sitting in the front row of other people's workshops with a notepad and a pen, genuinely learning, not performing interest, actually curious. And Cheryl would watch her and think, that's the secret right there. Stay a student, stay genuinely open to what's next. When the two of them decided to write a book together, they didn't start with an outline. They just sat down, talked, and let the conversations go wherever they wanted to go. Cheryl would record them, transcribe them, and then they'd figure out what the book wanted to be. What emerged was something deceptively simple, a guide to what you're actually doing to yourself and for yourself at every stage of an ordinary day. Because here's the thing, you're not passive in your life. You're constantly shaping it. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or not. So let's get into it. How do you start your day? Not the version you wish you could answer, the real version. Do you hit the snooze button? Do you lie there already cataloging everything that needs to happen, everything that went wrong yesterday, every conversation you're dreading? Do you open your eyes and feel the weight of it all before your feet even touch the floor? Or do you say something like, Oh, another day. Flat. Resigned. Like life is something that's happening to you rather than something you're actively living. Louise, when asked how she starts her morning, said something that at first seems almost embarrassingly sweet, and then you sit with it and realize it's one of the most radical acts of self-respect a person can do. She wakes up and thanks her bed. Literally, she thanks it for a good night's sleep. She nestles into it for a moment and says something like, "Thank you, that was wonderful." And then she looks at herself. She says good morning to herself. "Hi, darling. How are you?" I know what you're thinking. Because Cheryl's first reaction was to want to pinch Louise's cheeks and wonder how anyone actually lives that way. But here's what happens when you start your day with warmth directed inward instead of criticism or dread. You set the tone for everything that follows, not metaphorically, actually. The first thing you say when you wake up is, in a very real way, the opening line of your entire day. And if the opening line is, "oh shit," well, it tends to be that kind of day. Now here's the piece that changed Cheryl's life, and it might be the piece that changes yours. Before she does anything else in the morning, before she even uses the bathroom, Louise goes to the mirror. She looks directly into her own eyes and she says, "I love you. I really, really love you." And she says her name. When Cheryl first heard this, she was polite about it, but privately thought it was something out of a Saturday Night Live sketch. She'd tried mirror work before. She'd stand there, say, "I love you," and immediately start noticing everything she didn't like. The wrinkles, the under eye circles, the nose hair situation. Her brain would hijack the whole thing within about 4 seconds. So she'd stop because it felt fake, because she didn't believe it. And something that feels that insincere, why would you keep doing it? Here's what changed her mind. They were on the Oprah Winfrey Show. They'd been brought on to talk about the law of attraction. And Oprah kept turning to Louise throughout both tapings, asking her questions about self-love and building a relationship with yourself. And every single time, Louise would come back to the same thing. Please just get a mirror. Look in that mirror and tell yourself you love yourself every day. And Cheryl sat there watching this and thought, here is a woman in her 80s who is considered the godmother of the self-help movement, sitting on the biggest television platform in the world with millions of people watching. And the one thing she cannot say enough, the one thing she keeps coming back to, is the thing I'm dismissing as silly in my head. Maybe I should pay attention to that. So she went home and made herself a deal. 30 days. She would look in every mirror, every reflection, bathroom mirror in the morning, rearview mirror in the car, shop window passing by, and she would say something loving to herself, even if she didn't believe it, even if it felt completely hollow. Just 30 days. Week 1, awkward, still felt absurd, but she kept going. Week 2, something shifted. She started to feel softer toward herself, not dramatically, just gentler. And then something unexpected happened. She started being gentler to other people, less quick to judge, more able to see people's humanness and appreciate it rather than assess it. By the end of the month, she had completely restructured a book she was writing and added an entire chapter about what happened to her because of 30 days of looking in a mirror. Want to know how deep Louise takes this? She has a small round mirror attached to the lamp on her desk. Cheryl, when she visited Louise at home to work on the book, assumed it was for applying makeup. Louise looked at her like she'd said something very strange and said, "Why would I put my makeup on at my desk? That's for mirror work, so I can talk to myself all day long." Before a difficult phone call, she'd look in the mirror and say, "We're going to have a wonderful conversation. They're going to be agreeable. This is going to go really well. Then she'd dial. And after, she'd look back at the mirror and say, "See, we did it." If you think that sounds too good to be true, consider this. What are you doing before your difficult conversations? What are you rehearsing in your head? Because whatever it is, you're doing mirror work already. The question is just whether you're working with yourself or against yourself. Let's talk about your internal world for a minute, because this is where everything actually lives. Every thought you think and every word you say to yourself is an affirmation. People say, "I don't believe in affirmations," without realizing that's the funniest statement in the world, because their mind is running affirmations constantly. They're just usually negative ones. You're always confirming something about yourself and your life, always laying groundwork. The only question is what kind of groundwork. Here's an example most people will recognize immediately. You're getting dressed in the morning, you open the closet, and the automatic thought is, "I have nothing to wear." Now here's what you don't realize. If that's your consistent thought, the next time you go shopping, you will buy something you hate, because your mind is set to confirm that you never have the right clothes. You'll look right past things that could work because your expectation is scarcity. You'll make the prediction come true. Swap that out. Try. "I love my closet. I always find exactly what I need. When I shop, I choose things I'll love for a long time." That's not lying to yourself. That's deliberately choosing what groove you're running the needle through in your own brain. Because your thoughts create grooves. Repeat a thought enough times and it becomes automatic, invisible, just part of the background noise of your life, like driving a route you've driven 100 times without noticing the turns. Most people are driving through their entire lives on autopilot, completely unconscious of what they're saying to themselves, and therefore unconscious of what they're building. The shower is a perfect example. Cheryl noticed one morning while writing the book that she was dreading the day before she'd even rinsed the shampoo out. She'd unconsciously developed a habit of worrying, running through everything difficult, every email she didn't want to answer, every person she might disappoint, during her shower, every single morning, and she didn't even know she was doing it. Once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. So she made an affirmation, laminated it, hung it in the shower. "I am showered with good thoughts all day long." And her relationship with mornings changed. The shower went from a source of low-grade dread to an act of self-care. That's one small intervention with one repetitive habit. Imagine doing that across your entire day. Here's something worth pausing on, because people sometimes push back on this. They say, "But does thinking positive thoughts actually change anything? Or are you just in denial about reality?" Try this experiment. Close your eyes. Picture something very specific, something simple and physical, a big, ripe, red tomato. Don't force it. Just let the image sit gently in your mind. Then let it go. Do that a few times over the course of an hour or two. Then notice how long it takes for a red tomato to appear in your actual physical world, on a truck driving by, on a menu, in a conversation, on a restaurant table. The first time Cheryl did this, it took 46 minutes before she looked up on the highway and saw a big white truck go by with a giant red tomato printed on its side. Now you could write that off as coincidence. But here's the more interesting question. What are you focusing on that's also appearing in your world? What worries keep coming true? What expectations keep being confirmed? Because the experiment doesn't just work with tomatoes, it works with everything you're carrying in your mind. Louise once spent a drive in pure gratitude, talking to herself about how grateful she was for the car, the road, the city that built the infrastructure, the morning, all of it. And when she got out of the car, strangers walked up to her and said, "We are so grateful for you," and handed her a small gift. She said, "It doesn't take long to get out there and come back." One of the most powerful things Louise ever taught was about what to do when things actually go wrong, not in theory, in the middle of it. Cheryl tells a story about being in London with Louise. They'd finished a weekend workshop. Late at night, Cheryl's phone buzzes. A text from her sister. "Mom's been rushed to the hospital. Call me. It's 11 at night." She calls. Her mother, who hates hospitals, who wouldn't get in an ambulance under any ordinary circumstances, was sick enough that she had no choice. Cheryl lays down in bed and her mind starts doing what minds do. What if it's serious? What if she's scared? What if, what if, what if? And then she catches herself. She'd literally just spent a weekend teaching people about this. She'd just written a book about it. So she closed her eyes and she started saying over and over, "My mother is peaceful and calm. Every hand that touches her is a healing hand. Everyone around her loves her and treats her with great care. My family is positive, strong, and supportive in every way." She kept repeating that for about 45 minutes, and then her sister called back. "An infection. They've caught it. She's getting antibiotics. She'll be home soon." Now, Cheryl isn't claiming she healed her mother through positive thinking. That would be a leap. But she says this: she felt better, which meant she slept, which meant she was useful the next day. The energy she was sending out was calm and grounded rather than frantic. And most importantly, worrying for 45 minutes would not have changed a single thing about her mother's condition. But those 45 minutes of choosing different thoughts changed something about her. Worry is not love. It can feel like love because it's intense and focused on someone we care about. But focusing on what you want for someone, peace, healing, good hands around them, that's the higher calling. There's a story Louise tells about a young musician who was about to start his first professional job working for a nightclub owner everyone warned him about. They called this man Dr. Death. The musician came to Louise scared, asking what to do. She told him, "Before you walk in that building, bless it. Bless the entrance, the rooms, the stage where you'll perform, and then affirm, genuinely, repeatedly, that you have a wonderful relationship with the owner, that he loves your work, that this is a great place to be." A month later, the musician came back. He said, "He's still mean to everyone else, but he loves me. He slips me extra money and tells me I'm doing a great job." He didn't change the owner. He changed his own relationship with the situation. And somehow, impossibly, practically, that changed the situation itself. This is not magic. It's something closer to the physics of how human energy works. When you walk into a room expecting hostility, you're tense, you're closed, you read every neutral expression as a threat. When you walk in expecting warmth, you're open. You make eye contact differently. You respond differently. People respond to that. Rooms respond to that. Life responds to that. The most human story in all of this, the one that makes it feel real rather than theoretical, is a small moment that happened on a family day trip. Cheryl and her husband Michael and a friend were driving to the wizarding world of Harry Potter. They were late, almost out of gas, stressed, and at a certain point they got turned around. Cheryl pointed one direction, Michael went that way. It was wrong. And the two of them were now sitting in silent, tight-jawed, very married fury, while their friend sat stone silent in the back seat doing the very smart thing of pretending not to exist. Cheryl's ego was in full swing. She was running the full internal case for why it wasn't her fault, and she caught herself. rather than redecorate hell by arguing about who did what. That's a line from their marriage counselor, one of the best lines either of them had ever heard. She reached over and put her hand on Michael's. She didn't say anything. She just mentally started sending him love, visualizing it flowing from somewhere bigger, through her hand, into him. Nothing dramatic happened. His shoulders didn't drop in cinematic fashion, but over a few minutes his energy softened, and then hers did. And then she noticed she felt love, not performed love, not tactical love, but real warmth for this man who was probably internally beating himself up worse than she was. And within a little while, they found a gas station, turned around, and half an hour later were laughing as they walked into the park. That's it. That's the whole story. No miracle. Just a choice made in a small moment to reach for love instead of staying inside the argument. And everything shifted from there. This is what all of it points to. Every mirror, every affirmation, every morning routine and shower and grateful drive, it's all practice for exactly this, for the real moments, for the car with the wrong turn and the silent anger and the question of whether you're going to keep redecorating hell or do something different. Here's what Louise does when her own storms arrive. She gets to a mirror as fast as she can, and she talks to herself. It's okay, darling. We're going to get through this. We'll work it out. It's just an experience. And the most important thing is that I love you because that's what's going to be true between us forever. We'll work this out. It'll be okay. She says just saying that, without doing anything else, breaks the energy. You go from inside the problem to somewhere adjacent to it, and from there, you can see the solution. And when there's hope for a solution, it almost always comes through. Life is genuinely very simple, she says. We are the ones who make it complicated. We don't have to. You will be with yourself longer than you will be with any other person on this planet. Read that again. Let it actually land. You will be with yourself longer than anyone, which means the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship of your life. Not your marriage, not your friendships, not your kids. You with you, from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep for your entire life. Louise closes every night the same way. She breathes in and says, "Life loves me." Breathes out, breathes in. "Life loves me." Over and over until she drifts off. What if that was the last thought your mind carried into sleep tonight? Not the to-do list, not the unresolved conversation, not the low-level hum of everything you haven't done yet. Just, life loves me. It takes courage to do this. That's the honest truth. It takes real courage to look at yourself in a mirror and say, "I love you," and mean it when every voice in your head is queuing up objections. It takes courage to choose love over the loudness of your own ego. It takes courage to believe that something this small could actually do something, but it does. The people who actually do it, who do the reps, who make it a practice and not just an intention, their lives change. Not overnight, but in the way that real things change, gradually and then unmistakably. 30 seconds. That's all it takes to start. You know where to find the mirror.